But that's how it should be, isn't it? Technology is for the people, not the people for technology.
Absolutely. And it's the application of the technology where, that's what's going to drive adoption. And blockchain is ultimately a database technology. It is at its core, that is fundamentally what it is. Now, it has some unique attributes which make it different to existing databases. So we can say, for example, one of the key features of blockchain technology are things called smart contracts. Why are we using digital money? For me, answer your question more explicitly, it comes down to three things, and that is cheaper, better, faster. So with Algorand, which is obviously developed by a famous Italian, I think professor from MIT, very smart individual. And really what we're seeing there is they want to develop a blockchain which is fast, which is affordable to run on, and also runs on a very sustainable basis. So I think with Algorand, a big focus of theirs is not only that they're carbon neutral, it's actually I think that they're carbon negative.
Lory, let's talk about the king of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is the first, it is the standard bearer, and the technology which underlines it, the Bitcoin blockchain, has proved to work exactly as designed since birth back in 2009. And it's very rare that you can say that there's a technology that's been around for that amount of time and has executed flawlessly and also has not been hacked during that time frame. I guess the key message is being curious always, but also the importance of taking time out.
Before I forget, are you a hodler or a speculator? I'm Carlo Pignataro, and this is a new episode of Lux and Friends. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Lory Kehoe, a leader in the fields of blockchain, crypto, and Web3. Lory is the founder and chair of Blockchain Ireland, an organization dedicated to fostering blockchain technologies and innovation in Ireland. With over a decade of hands-on experience, Lory has played a pivotal role in building a thriving ecosystem, showcasing Irish companies, attracting investments, and helping shape the future of blockchain in the country. In addition, Lory serves as the Chief Commercial Officer and Head of International at M2. His leadership at M2 is paving the way for a new era of secure and transparent digital commerce across the globe. Lory is also an adjunct assistant professor at Trinity College in Dublin, where he educates MBA and MSc students on the latest trends in blockchain, fintech, AI, and digital transformation. His passion for teaching has earned him numerous accolades, and he continues to shape the next generation of innovators. In today's episode, we'll explore Lory's deep expertise in blockchain, examine the future of digital currencies, and discuss the broader implication of cryptocurrency for global finance. We'll also look at how blockchain technology is transforming industries and what makes Bitcoin stand out among the thousands of digital currencies. It promises to be an insightful conversation, so stay tuned. Lory, welcome to Lux and Friends, and welcome to the UAE, Dubai.
Thank you very much, Carlo. Pleasure to be here.
So tell me, you live in Ireland, you're Irish, and Ireland is home to all the European offices of the big tech companies in the world. How do you find the UAE? Is it an innovative and futuristic country as it portrays itself, and we believe it is?
Great question. And in short, it is. Since coming here over a year ago, it has been, I think, just eye-opening. I think what I thought the UAE, Dubai, and Abu Dhabi, what I thought it was like versus, what it is like. I think my expectations have far exceeded what I thought they were before coming here. The mix of cultures and people from all over the world, I think was one of the first things that struck me. So meeting people from, I guess, all over Asia, Central Asia and so forth, and countries which I guess there aren't a lot of people from those countries in Europe. So getting exposure to that mix and that absolute melting pot, I think was one of the key things. But then also, and I guess what we're here to talk about today, when it comes to technology, seeing the adoption and the interest in cryptocurrency and blockchain was pretty apparent almost from day one.
You know what makes me happy? You're a tech leader, and you started talking about people. But that's how it should be, isn't it? I mean, technology is for the people, not the people for technology.
Absolutely. And it's the application of the technology, I guess, where, yeah, that's what's going to drive adoption. So for me, I think when there's lots of people, lots of culture, you're going to get innovation, you're going to get new ideas, and you're going to see the proliferation of those ideas and applications of the technology. And also fundamentally, meeting new people broadens the mind. You're getting to learn about new cultures. And I guess that for me is, one of the pleasures of life.
I agree. So let me tell you what I envision for this interview today. My scope is to inform as much as possible on something that is happening regardless, a change in finance, a change in technology, a change in the way we exchange value. So I'll try to play the devil's advocate as much as I possibly can, although I'm a firm believer in some of these technologies, and I will also act as a student, which I am, to try and understand the basics of blockchain, cryptocurrency, and so forth. So my first question, as the head of Blockchain Ireland, what is a blockchain?
Great question. So blockchain is one of these terms where I think people can be frightened by it. I don't know what it is, or people almost, they hear the term and they switch off. Like anything, I think it can all just be broken down simply. And blockchain is ultimately a database technology. At its core, that is fundamentally what it is. Now, it has some unique attributes which make it different to existing databases. So we can say, for example, one of the key features of blockchain technology are things called smart contracts. Now, what is a smart contract? A smart contract is a self-executing contract when certain criteria are met. If this event happens, trigger this payment. So it's a form of automation through code being executed. And there are examples of this taking place, right now. So, for example, if your flight is delayed beyond a certain amount of hours, effectively what has been the case is that people would purchase an insurance product, they then have a negative experience because their flight is delayed, and then basically they have to go online, fill out a form, and then they get some money back several weeks later. That's a complicated customer journey. It's also a painful customer journey because you've paid for something, you've had a bad experience, and then you got to do homework to get what you're actually due. And so what we try and do with technology is to figure out, is there a better way, an automated way? And smart contracts basically are a way where, that 1 second past the 4 hours where your flight is delayed, it will speak to the flight tracker status, and then money will be deposited automatically in your account without you having to do your homework. And what's important as customers and on our customer journey is that should all happen seamlessly in the background, and we shouldn't have to care about what the technology is that does it, right? Because we just care about, I buy this product, I get this service. And it's actually blockchain and smart contracts that are working in the background to make that experience
That's
happen.
an amazing example. I haven't seen it happen yet.
So it actually happened a number of years ago through, it was AXA who brought out a product, believe it or not. It was called Fizzy, and they brought it out in France. And a former colleague of mine was very much at the heart of this. They brought it out very much kind of on a skunkworks basis. So it was like, okay, can we do this? Can we prove it works? They did. They didn't receive the funding and the marketing required to launch it as a full-blown product. So it was born, but born very quietly. And I think now there's an opportunity for that product to, I think, launch with full marketing gusto that it deserves.
That would be amazing. Is there any other smart contract at present that you think would be a good example for our listeners and viewers to understand?
Look, I think anywhere where you see that opportunity where, for automation to take place. So in any aspect of your society. So I think one of the ones that has come up many times is in the legal profession. So sometimes whether you're a solicitor or a barrister, it can be the case that you have a case and then basically the case completes, and it could be several weeks or months before you would get paid. And effectively, what people are exploring is the minute a judgment is made and it goes on official record, that should trigger the payment to be made to the solicitor or barrister, depending on the country that you're in, which then keeps the legal system moving forward instead of payments taking a long time, people chasing money, and so forth.
So we are heading towards an automated world, more and more.
Certainly, for certain things, yes, and I think that's a good thing. For everything, I think there needs to be there needs to be wiggle room for human interaction, intervention, negotiation, and that's part of business. So I'm not saying, everything has to be coded and must be coded, but for certain activities, it absolutely makes sense.
Let's talk about cryptocurrencies now.
Absolutely.
It's a big field of applications. Speaking about cryptocurrencies means talking about hundreds, if not thousands of coins, and each and every of them covers an application, backs up an application, although most people may only know Bitcoin and Ethereum, or Ether, as it should. So can you explain to a 10 years old, something that a 10 years old would understand, what a cryptocurrency is?
Sure. So a cryptocurrency is a form of digital money. Like that's the first thing. And I think you got to look at it in that way, that money has evolved over the last, hundreds and thousands of years, from, famously from seashells through to obviously gold itself, silver, and other precious metals. And now we're seeing paper, but the next stage in evolution of money is becoming digital, much like many other things in life and in society. And so what a cryptocurrency is that it is purely digital money. It's not backed by a bank or a central bank. There is no physical version of it. And because of these components, people, I guess, have been wary of it, because they want to know that, what government is behind it, and if there's something wrong, who can I go to, or who can I phone in order to try and fix whatever issue they may have. So the purely digital piece is a very important feature of it. And exactly as you said, Carlo, the greatest example of cryptocurrency is Bitcoin that's out there at the moment.
But why do we talk about digital money? Let me ask you, for example, a coin like Algorand, other than being a digital coin, is also a backup to a project called the Algorand Foundation. Can you explain how this evolves in the crypto space?
Yeah, and I think you raise a good question there around, there are things called blockchains, and then there's things called also distributed ledgers, which people may hear about. So blockchains tend to be public, so open to everybody. And it means you could literally download the source code to your computer, and you can then tweak it as you see fit to create another blockchain. It is the definition of open source technology, open innovation. There are other things called distributed ledgers, which tend to be private blockchains. So imagine it's kind of like a private party where you develop a certain technology, a certain database, and you configure it in such a way that only certain participants can interact with it based on a specific rule set. And typically with distributed ledgers or private blockchains, they don't tend to have a cryptocurrency associated with it. So a small segue there as to what's the difference between a DLT versus a blockchain. So with Algorand, which is obviously developed by a famous Italian, I think professor from MIT, so a very smart individual. And really what we're seeing there is they want to develop a blockchain which is fast, which is affordable to run on, and also runs on a very sustainable basis. So I think with Algorand, a big focus of theirs is not only that they're carbon neutral, it's actually I think that they're carbon negative. So they want to create a way for people to create applications using this blockchain technology, which is fast, which is secure, but also works in a very energy efficient way.
So can we say in this case, for example, that buying an Algorand coin, rather than buying a currency, is investing in a project without this company having to go through an IPO?
My personal view on that is yes. You are looking at the technology and you're seeing, okay, well, what community are they appealing to? Is it a community which is focused on, let's say massive security, and therefore the blockchain may be slightly slower? Or are they looking at, they want to provide fast throughput, as the case may be, and they're appealing to their ecosystem of developers who, in Algorand's sense, are, looking at sustainability as a key factor and feature. And so they're building out an ecosystem around that. So I think that's definitely a lens to look through every single blockchain that's out there. Key questions to ask when you're looking at a blockchain are, how many developers are there? What projects are being built? How active are those developers? And I think when you start to look at those questions, you'll get a much better feel as to who the community is, and also how vibrant is the community, right? And that ecosystem is an abused word in my opinion, but how active is the ecosystem? And the stronger those kind of pulse checks, the healthier that blockchain is.
You know, as a tech enthusiast, as a curious person, this excites me. But the first objection that comes to mind is for a company to issue a currency or a coin, there's less scrutiny than an IPO. So how do we go around that as an investor?
I would say less scrutiny by some people, but perhaps more scrutiny by others. So when a new blockchain comes out, especially ones that attract a lot of attention, there will be significant and material scrutiny by a lot of the technical folks who are out there to investigate. Okay, is this blockchain as fast as people say? If it is fast, how is it fast? How are they achieving that transaction per second throughput? If it's secure, which it must be, what are they doing to address that? And then if it has, a lot of people using it already, why are they using it? How is it different and better? So I think these are the kind of attributes that you have to look at. Now, if we look at a traditional IPO, I think what we're seeing then is you're looking at a lot of financial metrics. So, how many customers do they have? What is the profitability over the last, 3 to 5 years, the case may be? You're looking at all those kind of traditional or TradFi metrics. So I think both are valid, but they must be looked at slightly separately depending on whether you're, launching a new blockchain versus, IPOing a traditional company.
Sure. So I'd like to take it from what you said before. You said we live in a world where many things have already been digitized, so why not money? But my question is, Lory, I don't recall a paper payment over the past, 5, 10 years. I haven't used paper in a long time, with the exception of a few tips here and there. So why do we need digital currencies where, in fact, we are exchanging money traditionally through banks, digitally only?
So, good question. And it's funny, even over the last little while, I've been meeting with some companies, and they explained to me that actually, they were using paper as a means of payment to the bank or via a bank. It then went digital, and they've now said that it's actually going back to paper, which I couldn't believe. So I was kind of scratching my head at this going, okay, there has to be a better way. But for me, answer your question more explicitly, it comes down to three things, and that is cheaper, better, faster. Why are we using digital money? So when it comes to cheaper, right, and I have two really good examples. So in May, there was a payment made on a Sunday of over 1 billion Bitcoin moving from one wallet to another. And the cost of that payment was $7. So it was $1.1 billion worth of Bitcoin being made on a Sunday at a cost of $7. So, is that cheaper than moving $1 billion from one bank to another? Yes, categorically. And I imagine, moving $1 billion would cost multiples of $7.
Yeah, the last time I did it, it was more expensive.
So that's number one. The fact that they were able to do it on a Sunday, and the transfer happened on the Sunday, and then the recipient received the funds on the Sunday. So it wasn't initiated and then delivered several days later. It was, same day, same hour, which is somebody woke up, maybe they're in their pajamas and decided to move $1 billion, and you're able to do it on a Sunday. That's also pretty amazing. So cheaper, I would argue, faster is the other piece. And then I think the better component here is that with crypto, especially when we're in an environment now with declining interest rates, there's an opportunity where you can earn yield or return on the assets that you have. And perhaps we'll come on to talk a little bit more about that when it comes to M2 later. But that for me is a really important point. If you have crypto assets, there is a way of getting a return on them and making them work hard for you in the same way that you do with your money or with other assets that you may have. So an important kind of point to explain to your viewers and listeners that there is a way to get return on your crypto assets rather than just have it sit there and you hope that they appreciate in value over time.
Many countries are considering and discussing issuing their own digital currencies. How does it differ from the actual euro, dollars, yen, and so forth that had already been transferred digitally? And how do they differ from cryptocurrencies?
Another excellent question. And in short, I think the devil is in the detail as to how they differ. Are they better or otherwise? So we're seeing, I think, in the eurozone, the digital euro is being researched as we speak. It's gone through a number of different phases of investigation. I think it's in the research phase at present. The European Central Bank and Commission have come out and confirmed that there will be a digital euro, but it certainly sounds like there will be. I would be very surprised if there wasn't. Now, it has some features which are similar to crypto, but it has some other features which are definitely not. So the digital euro, based on the information that's available, it won't attract interest. So you won't be able to, if you hold a digital euro, it won't be, there won't be an opportunity to earn interest on that, okay, which is interesting, perhaps an opportunity missed. But what they are going to make it, it's also not going to be programmable, which is, I think, something that should be investigated further. And I think there's an opportunity there because with digital money, a big feature that is there is that it's programmable. You can make it behave in certain ways. So you can design it on day one, and especially, I think a great example for the world you live in is that and many fashion houses have done this. So I think if you look at Dolce & Gabbana and many others, during the NFT phase, which I still do believe in NFTs, despite I think a lot of people moving away, they were able to create NFTs and they were able to program royalties built in. So I created an NFT of a beautiful handbag, or it could be a suitcase, or it could be anything. What they did was they built in NFTs associated to those. So as you bought it, they built in royalties. So as you purchase that NFT and then you sell on to the next one, because I created the first one and I've built in that royalty, then every single time it's bought and sold, I still get a clip of that transaction. And Nike, Dolce & Gabbana, many of the fashion houses have made hundreds of millions of dollars through that royalty process. And you can go on to, there's a great analytics site called Dune, and you can track how much money they've made since the inception and creation of NFTs and continue to make as those NFTs are sold. So this is a real world application of the power of programmable features of blockchain technology, but also money. So sorry, I digressed there for a moment as we talked about CBDCs. So I think in Europe, what we're seeing is they're not programmable, won't be interest bearing, but a key feature, or some of the key features that they're trying to do, is they're trying to reduce the cost of payments across the Eurozone and 27 member states. So for me to send money in Ireland to you in Italy, that will be much cheaper than it is today. They also want to make it easy. So let's say, Carlo, I meet you in Spain and we jump in a taxi and you've paid for dinner, and I say, look, I really want to pay for the taxi home. What they want to make it really easy is that I can transfer you that money. As an EU citizen, I can transfer the money to you. So you may say, I use this app and I use Revolut, as the case may be. Yeah. But with the digital euro, it will be omnipresent and I'll be able to send that money directly to your wallet. There won't be a barrier, despite you being from Italy and me being from Ireland.
There won't be a barrier, or there won't be an intermediary?
Good question.
Because with Revolut, there's no barrier, actually. If we both of us have a Revolut account, we can send money instantly, isn't it?
Yes, that exactly. But I think what they're trying to get at is, well, if you don't have a Revolut account and I do, then there is a barrier. Yes. So how do they remove that barrier?
Okay.
And I think a final piece that they're trying to solve for, which I totally support, is the whole area of people who are unbanked. So how can they use the digital euro as a means to bring people who don't have bank accounts and don't have access to finance and don't have access to earning even small amounts of interest, to bring them into the financial net in a positive way so that they can start to get access to loans if they need them and to other financial products. So a very long-winded way to answer your question. It is, the devil is in the detail as to how central bank digital currencies will be different to cryptocurrencies, but it will differ from region to region, from country to country.
Do you think central banks' digital currencies will provide more or less freedom to citizens?
Another excellent question, and I think a lot of that will be in the design. So I think one of the major concerns out there about central bank digital currencies is the potential for excessive supervision in terms of every activity that a person undertakes with that money. So imagine if a central bank digital currency is born, and then it is able to be tracked and traced forever. So my ability, I send it to you, you send it to somebody else, that a government will then have oversight of every single transaction. People don't want that or feel nervous about that. Maybe not everybody, maybe some people want that, but people by and large are a bit hesitant around, I don't know if I want that level of visibility. And so what governments are grappling with and are trying to outline to citizens is that, okay, there will be certain components which will be visible to the government and governmental agencies, but maybe not all transactions or not all information will be visible to government entities. So this again is, I remember I was discussing central bank digital currencies with the head of the Boston Federal Reserve, and he was saying, Lory, you wouldn't believe that this isn't, the decisions around central bank digital currencies sound like it's kind of one or two big decisions. It's not. You're talking about kind of 40, 50, 100 really key decisions as to how these are designed, and you have to get it right. And that's why also it's taking longer than people think to design these and get them out in the wild, because you have to go through not only the technical decisions, the financial decisions, but also the societal decisions.
Lory, let's talk about the king of cryptocurrencies, the one that possibly started everything, or at least the one that is most known across the globe, Bitcoin. Some observers say it's different from all other cryptocurrencies. I suspect it is. What's your take?
I agree, right?
And what makes it different?
Look, Bitcoin, was the first. It is the standard bearer, and the technology which underlines it, the Bitcoin blockchain, has proved to work exactly as designed, since birth back in 2009. And it's very rare that you can say that there's a technology that's been around for that amount of time and has executed flawlessly and also has not been hacked during that time frame, which is, I think, is an amazing accomplishment by he, him, they, the designers of the code and of the technology. So I think it is the standard bearer. I think when it comes to when you start to look at markets and you start to look at price, the first thing people do is you'll look at the price of Bitcoin, and then if Bitcoin's going up, it tends to drag things up, but also the inverse is true. If Bitcoin starts falling, what impact does that have on the market?
Okay, can you explain the features of Bitcoin? What makes it different? Decentralized to start with?
Yeah, so there's no one owner of the Bitcoin blockchain.
And that's unique.
It is, and I think we've seen other blockchains come along who've tried to replicate in ways that feature. So using, if we look at big businesses today or big tech companies, they will use a centralized structure in which, there's a database, they control it, versus Bitcoin, which ultimately is I can download the Bitcoin blockchain right now, but so can you. And you will be able to see every transaction, and so will I. And if something happens to the data set that I have, I know I can reference the version you've downloaded or anybody else who has access to the Bitcoin blockchain network. It is completely open, it is decentralized. And that's where the power comes from. Because there are so many instances of that data set, if I was to try and double spend, which it solves for, if I was to try and say I have more money than I do, or try and put through a transaction and then try and take it back, because the rest of the network all has a copy of that state of affairs and state of truth, they will simply go, Lory, that's not correct, and therefore that transaction gets rejected. And that's where the power comes from. So instead of it being, let's say, Carlo, if it was me, you, and one other person, if you and I basically are trying to pull a fast one, you and I can agree, okay, that this transaction is false, but we both agree it's true, then it doesn't matter what the third person says because we've overpowered the network. When you're trying to do that in a 10-minute or 12-minute window with hundreds of thousands of people across the world, you can't do that. And so far, that's proved to be the case.
Wow. How big is the network? I'm not asking you to be precise, just to give perspective.
I'd have to double check now, but in terms of kind of nodes and validators, you're into hundreds of thousands all around the world, geographically dispersed, and that's the thing. So for you to try and kind of convince, convince or overpower the network, you would have to communicate with all these different people in that kind of 10 or 12 minute window, but before the next block is created. You would have to convince 51%, which is a 51% attack, that these transactions are true and everyone else should agree with you. And you're trying to do that with people you've never met in languages you don't speak. Very, very challenging.
Wow. What happens if a country blocks it or puts it out of law?
And so I think we've seen this with certain countries in the world. And I guess you can have different views on this. When countries take unilateral decisions on most things, what tends to happen is if people believe in it, they will find another way to participate in that specific technology or whatever area it may be. And then the government is left with a choice. So, okay, we've banned it, but then that's kind of, when you push things down, both in life and in technology, when you push things down, they tend to pop up somewhere else. And then it is not in the government's control. And I think what we're seeing is where countries have banned things, it can result in a reaction or another event, which is then outside the scope of the government. And so I think what we're seeing more and more when it comes to new technologies is that governments are taking a far more, I guess, open-minded approach, but then an approach where regulation kicks in. And so we're seeing this, I guess a good example in Europe would be the markets and crypto assets regulation, which has begin to come into force for stablecoins as of the 1st of July of this year, and then 1st of January more broadly for exchanges and other functions. And what that's trying to do is it's trying to create an even playing field across the EU 27 member states as to how crypto is regulated. So it's putting rules around anti-money laundering to make sure that there are checks and balances in place, that crypto is supervised, that there are capital requirements for the entities that are involved. So it is accepting fundamentally that crypto is here, it's here to stay, but there needs to be laws, rules, checks and balances in place that protect businesses and consumers and all those who interact with it. So banning is a tool, but it's an extreme tool. And regulation and thoughtful regulation is a way that will continue to help it, I guess, proliferate and hopefully result in lots of innovation. And here in the UAE, what we're seeing is, I guess, through the FSRA in Abu Dhabi, through VARA in Dubai. I think the FSRA was the first entity globally to produce crypto regulations. So the UAE, I think, has been seen as a leader in this space. What are we on? 2024, 7-8 years later, as we move forward. A leader when it comes to regulation, seeing the opportunity that crypto and blockchain can provide, but that there also needs to be checks and balances in place, which then allow companies to operate with clarity. And I think that's, when it comes to regulation, that's the key thing for businesses especially. If there isn't clarity, it makes it very difficult to operate. It becomes very risky because then you could be, if you set up a business and there aren't rules, it means then you don't know what the rules are and you could be fined. And businesses will risk off in that scenario. It will be, how do I manage risk? Well, if I don't know exactly how to operate, I will simply wait until I do know what the rules are, then I will set up. And so I think by the UAE leading in that way, it's resulted in many companies setting up here back from 2017, but right through to today, as more and more clarity comes out about crypto and blockchain, that is helping more companies come here. That's helping people get jobs in the space. It's helping startups get created. It's helping, I guess, universities develop programs here through NYU, Abu Dhabi, and that is all helping build the ecosystem.
It does. Going back to Bitcoin, one of its features and one that is of interest of my industry is its limited supply.
Yes.
Only 21 million.
Yes.
And some people have named it as digital gold, so
Yes.
as a store of value. Does it make sense in your opinion?
It does. It does. So only 21 million will ever be created. I think the last one will be created in 2140, and there's approximately 19 million in circulation so far. Which for some people are going, wow, there's not much left, and yeah, they're right. There isn't. And then we recently saw the halving. So the production when somebody successfully mines Bitcoin obviously was 6.25. It's now 3.125 per block. So it's getting harder to create, which then builds in the dynamics and the economics of Bitcoin. So obviously as supply decreases and demand increases, theoretically that should result in the price of any asset going up. And in this case, obviously it's Bitcoin. And this goes down to the genius or geniuses behind the design of Bitcoin itself. And much like gold in the comparison, so as time goes on, there's only so much gold in the ground. People continue to dig and search for gold and refine gold, but as time goes on, that supply is decreasing. And we saw this back in the gold rush, where it was readily, it was easier to find, easier to source, and there was a certain price to it. But as time has gone on, it's become more valuable because it's harder to source. So I think that's the comparison between the two. And then I think when you marry that with as a society, our increased focus on technology, on digital assets more broadly, I think they're the big driving factors to the interest in digital assets, in crypto assets, and in Bitcoin.
You work for an exchange.
I do.
Over the past couple of years, exchanges didn't have very good press. I'm thinking of the bankruptcy of FTX and other cases. How do you respond to this, how can I say, lack of trust from the public, general public?
I think those criticisms are fair, I have to say. So that's the first thing that I would say. For us as an exchange, and M2, as you said at the outset, is the name of the exchange, we were born regulated. So all those rules that the FSRA in Abu Dhabi established back in 2017, we see those actually as a pillar of strength to our industry and as to who we are as a company. So we were born regulated. We have a custody license. We also have a multilateral trading facility license, or MTF, which basically enables us to be an exchange. And we also have a partnership with a leading Abu Dhabi bank, which enables us to accept dirhams and then turn that into crypto and do the reverse as well. So what we see as just being absolutely critical is that there are rules, there are laws that are there to protect businesses, to protect consumers. And as an exchange, we feel that they're an enabler as to how we do business. We want those standards that are applied. And something that I say is that standards bring adoption, and it's really, really important. And so for us, I guess, to follow those rules, that enables us to build trust with our customers and clients, both here in the UAE and abroad. And that provides a platform to show that, look, we are following these rules, we believe in these rules, and that's what's going to enable us to continue to grow, both in the UAE, in the region and beyond.
I haven't set up my M2 account yet. Why should I?
Oh, great question. I think there's a few reasons. So look, we touched on regulation there, number one. Number two, I think that the partnership with a leading Abu Dhabi, very credible bank that enables you to deposit your dirhams, and then you can purchase crypto on the platform from there. But also through another entity, we have a license in the Bahamas, and through that entity, we're able to offer a market-leading earn programs. So basically, the way I look at it is that, Carlo, you work hard. You have then, let's say, decided to move some of your hard-earned dirhams into crypto, and instead of having your crypto sit there, it can work hard for you. And what I mean by that is that we actually offer market-leading rates on crypto. So for example, on USDT, you can earn 8%. On BTC, I think it's 7%. On Ether, it's 6%. On Ripple, it's 6%. I think on Solana, it's 5.5%. So if you are in a position where you have a crypto portfolio, you're in a long position, or you think it's going to appreciate in value over time, You can either have it sitting there earning no interest, or you can become an M2 customer and you can have your portfolio working hard for you, earning interest for you.
That sounds promising.
I certainly like to think so, and it's something I massively believe in, and a big part of the reason why I joined the exchange. It's like these products are like term deposits, but for your crypto.
For your crypto. As we head towards the end of our conversation, Lory, did I forget anything? There is anything else that our audience need to know? Let me give you a profile of our audience. Not that I know everybody, of course, but many of the people watching us work in the luxury industry. They're interested in what's shaping the new world. And is there anything else that needs to be clarified?
Yeah, look, I think for your viewers and listeners, they're obviously, working with high-end products, very expensive products. And I think there's more and more people, especially here in the UAE, who are coming to the UAE and may have crypto, and they would like to use crypto as a means of payment. Now, some companies may not want to accept crypto, and that's an opportunity, I think, for people then, to get in touch with them too, and we can help turn their crypto into AED. Obviously, they'll have to go through the KYC process and source of funds and all that kind of stuff, but there's an opportunity for partnership there. So because someone's offering crypto, I don't think the answer is no. I think the answer is, how can we partner to help those companies and help those customers do that? So that's definitely one. And I think another point, and I should have said this earlier, as an example as to how blockchain is being used within the luxury space. I think through a partnership with Aura and Microsoft, there's a platform which is really looking at around track and trace of goods. So how do I know the luxury handbag that I have, or the bag that I use to carry my laptop? How do I know that the bag that I'm purchasing is legitimate? How do I know it's not counterfeit? And so what this company has done is they have looked at kind of almost the equivalent of farm to fork. So they've looked at, okay, where the piece of leather was created in Italy, as the case may be, where it was made, how it was then transported from Italy right the way through to Paris or even to Dublin. And what you're able to do is companies started seeing, and department stores started seeing, I guess, counterfeiting as being a problem, where somebody would come in, they would purchase an expensive good, they would then leave the shop, they then come back, they then give back a fake version, they'd get their money back. So they get to keep the expensive luxury good and they get the funds. And this was causing a problem. So this companies and luxury fashion houses started going, okay, how do we try to begin to combat this? So they have this farm to fork mechanism where you're able to come in with the bag, and embossed in the bag is a serial number. You then can take out your phone, you will then scan a QR code associated to the bag, and then you type in the serial number and it will demonstrate that yes, this bag is legitimate. And actually the serial number is recorded, and that is recorded on a blockchain, which is this immutable, which basically means very hard to tamper with database. And it's basically you're entering in that number, and it's showing that yes, this good has been recorded on the blockchain. It may even show a date as to when the bag was created first. It may even show a full history of how it moved from point A to point B to point C to end up in that specific department store. And it shows that full life cycle of authenticity. I know if I was spending, 10,000 euro or 100,000 dirhams on something, I'd want to know it's real. And this is a really powerful point of the technology, which I think is starting to be used more and more, whether that is for, your beautiful watch, as the case may be. I want to know it's real. And so how do we use technology?
Absolutely. And it opens windows of development for the industry. Incredible. So maybe we need a second conversation about it.
Love to.
Lory, before we conclude, I always like to think that I'm in the human-to-human business, and I like my audience to get to know the person behind the professional. What brought you not only here in Dubai, but here in the blockchain space? What's your journey?
You know what? This kind of story comes up for me, and it's the importance of taking time out. And I don't mean to say that in a cliched way. I was on holidays visiting a very good friend of mine in Hong Kong, and this was back in, I think, 2014. I was asking him about, what are the latest tech things that are going on? He said, oh, crypto's becoming more important here. I really didn't know much about it. And I was lucky to have some time off, basically sitting on a beach doing nothing. So between reading a book, and then I remember he said kind of crypto and blockchain. And then I went down the rabbit hole of looking up videos, and 2 hours later, you're in from one video to the next video to the next video. So it was that moment that I was like, I think there's something in this. And I went back to my old boss in Deloitte, and I said, look, I think there's something in this. I think this could be an important technology. And he had, I guess, the foresight and patience to put up with me nagging him about it. And I went on to write a short paper about it for Deloitte. And at the time, that was the first that they published globally. And one thing led to another. And that was really the start of my journey. So I guess the key message is, being curious always, but also the importance of taking time out. Because I think if somebody, says something to you and you're in a busy space and a busy part of your working day, it's something that you want to get back to, but don't get the chance to. So taking time out to reflect for a little bit, marry that with your curiosity, I think that is a positive thing to do.
Yeah, that's quite a recipe. Before I forget, are you a hodler or a speculator?
I'm a hodler.
Lory Kehoe, thank you for being with me on Lux and Friends.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.